You don't build a company like this unless you believe that people expressing themselves is a good thing. I care a lot about how people feel when they use our products, and I don't want to build products that make people angry. The thing that's different about virtual and hopefully augmented reality compared to all other forms of digital platforms before is this feeling of presence, right? The feeling that you're right, that you're in an experience and that you're there with other people or in another place. That's just different from all of the other screens that we have today, right? Phones, TVs, all this stuff. It's they're trying to, in some cases, deliver experiences that feel high fidelity, but at no point do you actually feel like you're in it, right? At some level, your content is trying to sort of convince you that this is a realistic thing that's happening, but all of the kind of subtle signals are telling you, no, you're looking at a screen. I think it's interesting in what ways some of these things already feel more real than a lot of the technology that we have, even when the visual fidelity isn't quite there. But I think it'll get there over the next few years. And there, I think you have feelings of like temperature, olfactory, obviously touch, right? We're working on haptic gloves, the sense that you want to be able to, put your hands down and feel some pressure from the table. All these things I think are going to be really critical to be able to keep up this illusion that you're in a world and that you're fully present in this world. But I don't know, I think we're going to have a lot of these building blocks within, the next 10 years or so. And even before that, I think it's amazing how much you're just going to be able to build with software that sort of masks some of these things. And then with VR today, even without eye tracking and knowing what your eyes are actually looking at, you can fake it reasonably well, right? So you can look at like where the head poses, and if it looks like I'm kind of looking in your general direction, then you can assume that maybe there's some eye contact intended, and you can do it in a way where it's like, okay, maybe not a fixated stare, but it's somewhat natural. But once you have actual eye track, you can do it for real. And I think that that's really important stuff. So when I think about Meta's contribution to this field, I have to say it's not clear to me that any of the other companies that are focused on the metaverse or on virtual and augmented reality are going to prioritize putting these features in the hardware because, like everything, they're trade-offs, right? I mean, it adds some weight to the device, maybe it adds some thickness. You could totally see another company taking the approach of let's just make the lightest and thinnest thing possible. But, I want us to design the most human thing possible that creates the richest sense of presence. And because so much of human emotion and expression comes from these like micro movements. If I like move my eyebrow, millimeter, you will notice, and that like means something. So the fact that we're losing these signals in a lot of communication, I think is a loss. And it's not like, okay, there's one feature and you add this, then it all of a sudden is going to feel like we have real presence. You can sort of look at how the human brain works and how we express and kind of read emotions. And you can just build a roadmap of that, of just what are the most important things to try to unlock over a 5 to 10 year period and just try to make the experience more and more human and social. I think that in building this, we sort of need to balance. There are going to be some new things that you just couldn't do before, and those are going to be the amazing experiences. So teleporting to any place, right? Whether it's a real place or something that people made. And I mean, some of the experiences around how we can build stuff in new ways, where a lot of the stuff that, when I'm coding stuff, it's like, all right, you code it and then you build it and then you see it afterwards. But increasingly, it's going to be possible to, you're in a world and you're building the world as you are in it and kind of manipulating it. One of the things that we showed at our Inside the Lab for recent artificial intelligence progress is this BuilderBot program where now you can just talk to it and say, hey, okay, I'm in this world, like put some trees over there and it'll do that. And like, all right, put some bottles of water on our picnic blanket and it'll do that. And you're in the world. And I think there are going to be new paradigms for coding. So I think the reality is it's not just going to be one thing. My own sense of kind of how you want to express identity online has sort of evolved over time, in that, early days in Facebook, I thought, okay, people were going to have one identity. And now I think that's clearly not going to be the case. I think you're going to have all these different things, and there's utility in being able to do different things. So some of the technical challenges that I'm really interested in around it are, how do you build the software to allow people to seamlessly go between them? So you could view them as just completely discrete points on a spectrum. But let's talk about the metaverse economy for a second. Let's say I buy a digital shirt for my photorealistic avatar, which, by the way, I think at the time where we're spending a lot of time in the metaverse doing a lot of our work meetings in the metaverse, and et cetera, I would imagine that the economy around virtual clothing, as an example, is going to be quite as big. Why wouldn't I spend almost as much money in investing in my appearance or expression for my photorealistic avatar for meetings as I would for the whatever I'm going to wear in my video chat? I think that there's going to be a huge aspect of just people doing creative commerce here. So I think that there is going to be a big market around people designing digital clothing. But the question is, if you're designing digital clothing, do you need to design, if you're the designer, do you need to make it for each kind of specific discrete point along a spectrum? Or are you just designing it for kind of a photorealistic case or an expressive case? Or can you design one and have it translate across these things? If I buy a style from a designer who I care about, and now I'm a dragon, is there a way to morph that so it like goes on the dragon in a way that makes sense? And that I think is an interesting AI problem, because you're probably not going to make it so that designers have to go design for all those things. But the more useful the digital content is that you buy in a lot of use cases, the more that economy will just explode. We were joking about NFTs before, but I think a lot of the promise here is that if the digital goods that you buy are not just tied to one platform or one use case, they end up being more valuable, which means that people are more willing and more likely to invest in them, and that just spurs the whole economy. But the question is, okay, so let's say you buy some shirt for your photorealistic avatar. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a way to basically translate that into a more expressive thing for your kind of cartoonish or expressive avatar? And there are multiple ways to do that. You can view them as two discrete points. And okay, maybe, if a designer sells one thing, then it actually comes in a pack and there's two, and you can use either one on that. But I actually think this stuff might exist more as a spectrum in the future. And I think the direction on some of the AI advances that is happening to be able to, especially stuff around like style transfer, being able to take, a piece of art or express something and say, okay, paint me, this photo in the style of Gauguin, or, whoever it is that you're interested in, take this shirt and put it in the style of what I've designed for my expressive avatar. I think that's going to be pretty compelling. If you're trying to help people connect all around the world, a lot of content is produced in one language, and people and all these other places are interested in it. So being able to translate that just unlocks a lot of value on a day-to-day basis. When people think about translation, I think a lot of that is they're thinking about text to text, but speech to speech, I think, is a whole other thing. And I mean, one of the big lessons on that, which I was referring to before, is I think early models, it's like, all right, they take speech, they translate it to text, translate the text to another language, and then kind of output that as speech in that language. And you don't want to do that. You just want to be able to go directly from speech in one language to speech in another language. Let's talk about AR here for a second. You're going to have these glasses. They're going to look, hopefully like a normal-ish looking pair of glasses, but they're going to be able to put holograms in the world and intermix virtual and physical objects in your scene. And one of the things that's going to be unique about this compared to every other computing device that you've had before is that this is going to be the first computing device that has all the same signals about what's going on around you that you have. Right? So your phone, you can have it take a photo or a video, but these glasses are going to, whenever you activate them, they're going to be able to see what you see from your perspective. They're going to be able to hear what you hear because their microphones and all that are going to be right around where your ears are. So you're going to want an AI assistant that's a new kind of AI assistant that can basically help you process the world from this first person perspective, or from the perspective that you have. And the utility of that is going to be huge, but there's a lot that we're going to need to basically make advances in. But that's why I think these concepts of the metaverse and the advances in AI are so fundamentally interlinked that, they're kind of enabling each other. A lot of people think that the metaverse is about a place, but one definition of this is it's about a time when basically immersive digital worlds become the primary way that we live our lives and spend our time.